All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so glad to have you all here. We were just chit-chatting about how wonderful this program has been. I am just super duper proud of it, and I think it has a lot of potential to have a lot of impact in a lot of different places. And so I am very thankful to everyone who is tuning into this presentation and is here to learn with us. Yeah, so let's go into it. I guess I should share my screen first. Let's go ahead and make sure that happens. All right, so we are all here to learn about our high quality, high volume spay neuter training program with United Spay Alliance. And this provides spay neuter training for veterinarians. And so we got a lot to get through. I just want to preface this by saying there's a very good chance we might get over today or go over time today because I do want to give folks a chance to ask questions and answer those questions. I want to give space to everything that I know folks might be wondering about. And so just know that we are recording this presentation. It will be available after the fact. And so if you do have to step away, please don't panic. This will be a resource ongoing for you. But yeah, we have a lot of really cool information to share. Before I kick off, though, for anyone who might not be as familiar with United Spay Alliance, I just want to give a little overview of who we are. We are a national organization and spay neuter is like the only thing we think about, only thing we talk about. That's our whole mission is to promote affordable, accessible, and timely spay neuter services. And so that's who we are as an organization. It is the only thing that matters to us when we're thinking about the work and how we engage and how we support animal welfare and rescue overall. That's it. Spay and neuter. We know that it is the most powerful tool we have. We know that prevention works. We know that we can eliminate the surrender of animals, the abandonment of animals, the suffering of animals. We can ease the burden on shelters and rescues. We know they're overcrowded, they're overworked. We know compassion fatigue is a real thing. There's so many layers that can be helped and supported by widespread access to spay and neuter services. And so that's why we are here, is to spread the good news and make sure everyone knows about it and see what we can do to make it as accessible as possible throughout our community and throughout all the communities around the country. We do have a campaign called Fix for Life, it's meant to be a really approachable campaign, especially for the general public, learning about spay and neuter and why to spay and neuter. So we encourage folks to go check out our Fix for Life landing page. I forgot to put the link on here, but if you go to unitedspayalliance.org, under, I think it's like About Us or What We Do, you're going to see Fix for Life. Go check it out. Please feel free to share that campaign, share that language with your communities, because we found it to be a really fun way to talk about spay and neuter with people who might not be familiar with it otherwise. Okay, I'm going to give you just the briefest overview of our work and our programs because I do think it's important when we're framing the wet lab program because it's part of a lot of different things that we have going on and a lot of different perspectives coming together, right? And so I just think it's important to give you a little bit of a foundation as to how we work. And so probably our most popular program and the thing that we started with was our spay neuter directory. And so it is an online database. Basically, you can search by zip code. We have a map. You can click on your state and search by zip code, and you can find spay neuter resources near you. We're also starting to include other resources that would be supportive, like food pantries or TNR programs or voucher programs. Anything we come across in our travels that would benefit someone who's already looking for a low-cost spay neuter resource, we're trying to incorporate that in. And so that is entirely supported by our network of volunteers, by our state leader network, which is also a key part of who we are and how we started, was creating this. It's twofold. I would say that to the public, they are leaders and the movers and shakers in their community, promoting access to spay and neuter in their communities, in their states. But we are putting them as leaders in a peer-to-peer sense, where folks are working together and they're sharing ideas and overcoming challenges, together, because none of us should have to reinvent the wheel. We also have our Feline Fix by 5 Months campaign, which is focused on promoting spay and neuter services for cats before the age of 5 months. for so many reasons, but of course we know that cats can get pregnant at 4 months. And so if we really want to eliminate those oops litters, fix by 5 is the way to go. We have various task forces and committees that we're a part of, like our vet shortage task force, which is kind of peeling back all of the layers on the challenges facing the vet profession, and the ripple effect that those challenges then create on the animal welfare world and how those intersections all jive together. It's proven to be a lot more complicated than we thought it would be going in, right? And so we have these task forces that represent lots of different organizations and people and experts from around the field of not just animal welfare, but we have policy folks, we have, pulling in other officials and government people where we can, basically trying to create cross sections of people who are thinking from different angles about these topics. And so we have task forces, we have committees, and we also have grant programs where we are glad to be the administrator of funding for spay neuter. And so we have our Community Cats Grants Program, which we just kicked off fundraising for Group 22, which means it's our 22nd cohort of organizations receiving funding. We're very proud of that. We're very proud of our work with the Community Cats podcast, who is our co-host today, by the way. Shout out to Community Cats podcast. But the grant program started over there with them. We took it over in 2024, administering those funds and keeping spay and neuter for community cats front and center. And we have another opportunity with a partnership from Summerlee Foundation, and it's our Summerlee Sustainable Solutions Grant Program, which just kicked off. And so we have a lot of different programs, again, looking at spay and neuter and the way we can support and understand and collaborate and build connections and build community, all these different pieces and how they kind of weave together. Just to keep in mind. We have lots of resources that support that work. Obviously, you're here today attending a webinar. We have free webinars. We just hosted our online conference, which was a weekend long of just spay neuter focused conversations and how do we start programs, how do we run successful programs, all of those conversations. We have information on different models to consider and examples of those models in action. So we're delivery systems. And so whether it's a MASH style spay neuter clinic or a mobile unit or your average brick and mortar high volume clinic, all of these different models and what they look like, things to consider, examples of success. We have information on all of those. We have, I call it a clearinghouse of resources of just spay neuter training in general. So not just our training program, but also any other training program we come across, whether it's an in-person opportunity or virtual opportunity, or maybe it's, videos that are available. We are trying to compile as much of this information as possible to make it easy for people to find. We also have our Spay VetNet, which is just a directory of experienced, high quality, high volume surgeons who have raised their hand to say, yes, I am an experienced surgeon and I'm happy to share what I know. And so we have this network that we're building of surgeons around the country who, we can rely upon if we have a question and I need to reach out for mentorship or support in some way, or need to put them in touch with other organizations. And so we're kind of growing that network and seeing what opportunities there are there. I didn't even put it here, but we have a podcast as well that has monthly episodes that are being released featuring different stories from the spay neuter movement. We, of course, are on social media sharing all of this content. So again, all to say, we have lots of different resources trying to appeal to people in lots of different ways, bringing education, bringing support, bringing inspiration. And a brand new resource. I had to put this in because our team has been working really hard on these lately. We are going to a public health conference in a couple weeks and specifically appealing to our public health officials. We know they are friends and allies in this. We've worked with public health officials in the past. They've been strong supporters of the spay neuter work that we do. We are just going to reinforce the relationship between public health and the benefits of spay neuter and rabies vaccinations for communities and community health. I think that message has kind of gotten lost along the way, but of course, animal welfare organizations are a key component to public health. And so we have materials available for that. Please go check them out. Again, we're pretty proud. We want to get the one pager out there. We want to get the information out there. Go check it out. Okay, that was a lot of preamble, right? And so I really hope that I've emphasized that United Spay Alliance is here as a resource. We are here to make sure that people have whatever tools, whatever information, whatever connections and they might need. If someone encounters a challenge or a problem, we want to put them in touch with someone who's been there and can help solve it. And so we're constantly thinking of ways that we can support the spay neuter work that needs to happen. And so enter our high quality, high volume spay neuter wet lab program. So what we are here today, I'm going to try and talk to you about the program and why we do this. And I'm hopefully not going to take too long on that piece of it. And then we'll get into how it works, which I know you're all very curious about. And we're going to wrap up with, of course, our questions, because I know there are going to be questions out there, which I'm happy to answer. All right. So I don't have an official poll created, I don't think. But if you don't mind dropping into, let's use the Q&A box, I think. What does the average cost of a low-cost feline spay surgery look like for you? If you could just put that into the Q&A box for me. Now we're using feline spays, right? So we're keeping this apples to apples. Let's focus on the cats and let's focus on the ladies. And so what does that look like where you are? All right, I'm seeing 50, 100, 50 to 60, 65, 160. Okay, okay. 95, thank you, Dr. Sank. 80 to 95. So I'm seeing the highest so far I've seen is 160. That's good. That's good. I mean, that's where we are, but that's good. These numbers are pretty okay. Cool. Because I know when I've asked this question before, I have seen some wild numbers in that bar for what is low cost. It's been different. It has been different. We were advising, folks who were helping us with our research. I'm like, okay, we're gonna say 150, but that is a flexible line right there. What does the neighborhood look like basically for cost? And so it is important to know that low cost bar is different for every community. I'm pleased by the numbers I'm seeing here. Obviously, we would love things to be under $100. We would probably love things to be under $50, but we're at this point, I'm happy to see anything under 150, to be honest. And so to everyone in the room, that's wonderful. $400, Carol, I just saw that, sorry, in the Q&A. $400 in Massachusetts. My goodness, like I was just saying, that low cost is different from place to place. And I know what was it? Connecticut was, their low cost pricing was around 200 or 250, I think, when I last looked. So it just depends where you are. All right. And then I'm also kind of $800 in Michigan. Whew. Okay. Okay. $500 for low cost. Yep. $500 is also what I've heard out of New York City. And you're saying it in Michigan as well. So yeah, that's more what I was expecting to hear. But I'm glad that some people, it seems, still have access to true low cost, and then other people are accepting what is considered low cost based on the area. So yeah, my next question is just generally, how would you describe access to affordable spay neuter? Like, is there a clinic nearby? Do you have multiple clinics to choose from? Are you driving 2 hours to get to a clinic? What does that kind of look like for you? Very accessible. I like that. Yeah, we like access. We like when it's easy, because when it's easy and when it's affordable, people will do it. But when it becomes, the more barriers you put in the way, the more unrealistic it is, or the more uh, unavailable, I guess it is, to people who just cannot make those solutions work. Accessible but booked out for weeks to months, several clinics but booked out 4 to 6 months. Yep, I'm hearing that 4 to 6 months. Driving 1.5 to 2 hours. Yep, within 30 minutes. Perfect. Minimal access at best. Clinic not accessible by public transportation. That's a key component too, right? Like, what are the barriers in the way? Is it too far? Is it, can someone who without transportation get there if they don't have their own car? Or are they having to rely on public transportation? Can they get there? And then the appointment availability is a big one. Terrible. Only one facility in the county with service. County funded to TNR is 0. Yep, yep. Wait in line at, at 5 a.m. forward. Oh my goodness. You have to wake up early and wait in line, says Kathleen. Yep. So, okay. So it sounds like we're kind of all on the same page. It varies place to place. I'm hearing that there is, differences, but generally, here are the problems. And we hear these throughout the country. It doesn't seem to matter too much where you're located. Some places are faring better than others. And if you are in an area where none of these apply to you, wonderful. I'm very happy for you. However, a lot of places, at least one, if not all three of these problems apply. And there are more problems. It's not an exhaustive list, but we know that there are too few providers. There just aren't enough clinics or even just vet practices of any kind offering these spay neuter services. And so it is sometimes very difficult for folks to even find some place that's going to work with them to do these spay neuter procedures. We call them spay deserts when you're in an area where you're having to drive just unreasonably far to access any services whatsoever. And this is nothing new. Certainly, the pandemic and the closures and the staffing challenges that we've seen, they've all been compounding factors and they have been a challenge. We have seen clinics close because of all of those reasons. However, there's always been access issues, right? And so it was just kind of worsened by the pandemic, and we're still trying to get out of it. But there are entire regions that don't have access to any vet care, let alone a spay neuter provider. There are rural areas that don't have a shelter, do not have animal control, and they are having to drive 2 hours or more to access any kind of vet care. And that's just the reality. So we know that that situation exists. And then add to that, if there is a place that's offering services, because they're one of the few, often they're overbooked, right? The appointments just aren't there. The demand is overwhelming between the owned animals, people who want to do the best thing for their pets, and then all the shelters and rescues who are vying for those same appointments. It gets very congested very quickly. And so that's where we start seeing the appointments just book up super fast. I've heard of places where they're like, oh, our clinic, our booking software goes online at like 6 a.m. and then the appointments are booked out by 6:15. They're like, they just go immediately. As soon as they are online, they are gone, which is wild. And the fact that we're still seeing 4 or 6 month waiting lists in a lot of places is just wild. And then add to that, if you can get an appointment, then often it's expensive. And especially if you are someone who is maybe living paycheck to paycheck or on a very strict budget, it's not always realistic what you are being asked to pay. Or if you have multiple cats that you're trying to TNR, it's not always realistic what you're being asked to pay. We know that these rescues and organizations that are working to help animals are usually operating on a very lean budget. And so you want your funds to go as far as possible, right? Right? Why can't it be easy? Why can't we just have more providers and more appointments? And why are services so darn expensive? Okay, let's dig a little deeper. So we can't solve all the problems, but well, what if we just have more vets, right? Can't be that hard. More vets should just say yes. They should just do the surgeries. Why not? What is so hard about this? It seems pretty obvious. I get it. I feel the same way. But if you dig a little deeper, the honest to goodness truth is that most vets, when they graduate vet school, they only have 1 or 2 spay surgeries under their belt. And it's possible they might not even have a full surgery start to finish completed on their own, under their belt. It's just not all vet schools, right? Curriculums may vary. I think curriculums are changing. However, the overwhelming feedback I get about new graduates, especially, is that they just don't have the surgical experience. Unless they have intentionally sought out the opportunity to do these surgeries, odds are they're just not going to come by it, right? It's not included. And that seems wild. But if you think about it, vets have to learn about a lot of animals and a lot of ailments and a lot of treatments and a lot of procedures. They're cramming a lot of information into their brains, their big, beautiful brains. And so while spay and neuter is all we talk about at United Spay Alliance, and it's central to everything we do in animal welfare, they got a lot going on, right? And so not every vet is going to have the same level of experience or exposure to spay and neuter, right? So keep that in mind. And then those vets with that 1 to 2 surgical level experience, they just might never have had the opportunity or been exposed to high quality, high volume spay neuter techniques. They might probably have never set foot in a high volume clinic. They have no idea what that process actually looks like or what these techniques actually are or why they are, so beneficial. They just haven't been exposed to it. And it's not, I don't think, and for many, it's any kind of an intentional thing. I think that it just truly, they have no idea. And that there is this myth that persists somehow that the low cost somehow means low quality. I think there's still assumptions out there that we are working against, even in the vet community, about what these clinics are and what service they provide. And so I think we're working against some of that too. Just again, they haven't been exposed to it unless they have intentionally sought out that opportunity. Even if they were in shelter medicine, if you think about the big bubble of shelter medicine, there's so much spay neuter is in there, right? But it is a specialized piece. In shelter medicine, you're also treating animals and injuries, and you have a lot more to consider. But the high quality, high volume is a piece of that. And so we're getting very like niche, right? We're zeroing in on a very, very specific skill set. And if you're not intentional about it, it's really hard to pick up that skill set anywhere else. There aren't a lot of training opportunities available. We think the ASPCA Spay Neuter Alliance or ASNA, formerly Humane Alliance, we think they're great. They developed this training model. We refer to a lot of their resources still when we are onboarding participants. I refer to the guidelines they put forward. They've developed a terrific model, but they can only train so many veterinarians at a time. You have to travel to their facility to participate. You have to get the licensing in the state to do it. You're having to take time away from your family. You have to take off of work to go, participate. So like there's all these different barriers that make it logistically very challenging and not something everyone can go do. And also they have a wait list because they can only accommodate so many folks at a time. And there are other trainings coming together. There are other trainers out there. We're seeing it happen, but there's not a lot and it's harder to find, right? And then we also have the high volume clinics. Well, why can't they just go volunteer or go, work for a day at the high volume clinic that's in our town? Why not? Because there's this challenge, right? They're not trained. They are not trained in high volume surgery. And so they're not going to move at the pace that those clinics need them to move because those clinics have to have a sustainable business model, right? They have to hit a certain number of procedures in order to make their ends meet because they need to remain open to keep doing those surgeries, right? And so what I have learned is that high volume spay neuter clinics are like a dance and everyone has to move together and they all have to know the steps and it all meshes together in a very beautiful way. But if someone doesn't know the dance steps, they're going to slow down the overall production and it's going to be a challenge. And not every clinic will have the resources to slow things down and to onboard new people and bring them in. That's not necessarily their fault. It's just the reality, right? And so it's not quite as simple as picking up the phone and just call them. Just call them and see when you can come in because often these clinics just don't have the time, right? We know vets are hard to come by, and so we need those vets to be doing surgeries, and they might not be able to slow down and bring on new folks. So anyway, not to belabor the point, but you see what I'm getting at here. It gets to be more challenging. There's more to consider than what on the surface you might think. Okay, so enter our wet lab training model. Considering those problems, considering the challenges when it comes to vets in just the lack of access to high quality, high volume spay neuter, what can we do? Well, we can try to create as many hands-on learning opportunities for them as possible, and we can make it as local and as convenient as possible to attend, right? We're going to minimize barriers to entry. We're going to try to create a template that anyone can use because we want as many folks as possible to make this available because we want vets to have this experience. We want them to see what it's like and to take these techniques and do with them what they will. Because at the end of the day, if we want more vets doing spay and neuter surgeries, if we want to increase capacity, then we need to make sure they have access to the training and the education and the mentorship in a supportive environment. And I think that is critically important, that supportive environment where they are under the supervision of an experienced surgeon, because they're not just concerned about the spay surgery itself, they're also concerned about what happens if something goes wrong. If you think of a clinic where, you might just have one veterinarian on duty at any time, if they're the only vet in the room and something goes wrong and they don't know what to do, like I don't blame them for being nervous. I wouldn't want to be in that situation either. And so they have real concerns about, not wanting to oversell their skill set or step into something they're not really prepared for. So let's go ahead and prepare them. What can we do? All right, I am going to pause because I know what you're thinking. Why the heck are we calling it a wet lab? That sounds real gross. And I thought so at first too. I didn't like it, but as it turns out, it's just a technical term. It is jargon if you're in the vet world or even human medicine or probably other professions as well. A wet lab just refers to the opportunity to apply your hands-on learning, your training on real animals and real surgeries in a real world type environment under supervision, of course. So it is a controlled, supportive, supervised environment, but you're getting real hands-on experience. And so that's what a wet lab means. Opposite of that, you have your dry lab, which would be more like classroom learning or lectures or watching videos, something that is all theoretical and not the practical application. So again, you're going to hear the term wet lab a lot. Just be aware. I'm not trying to be gross. That's just what it's called. All right. So thinking about our wet labs and thinking about the trainings and the challenges that we were talking about and these potential barriers, how did we come up with this model, or what did we want in this model, I should say? We are trying to strategically fill the gap in a way that will actually invite folks in, right? We are not trying to gatekeep this information. So we want as many vets to participate in this as possible because we want more vets to do more spay neuters, to feel comfortable and confident doing spay neuters, and to be able to participate in this process. So we're keeping them local. We're looking, to the communities themselves. We're keeping them they're as supported by United Spay Alliance as possible, but it's not our wet lab, it's your wet lab, right? We're asking for a 1-day commitment. Oh, I should also say with the local training, it means that our vets, our participants who are coming to learn, they don't have to travel very far. They don't have to worry about licensing because they're already going to be licensed in the state. They're not having to take time off of work necessarily or be away from their family for a prolonged period of time. Because it's local, it's really easy just to pop in. You have an 8 to 5 normal work day usually, or 8 to 5 day, go home for dinner and return to business as usual. So it's really easy as a participant to attend. And then I'll touch on the grassroots part in a second. But yeah, and it's a 1-day commitment. So it's not multi-day, minimal travel required, minimal expense required. You're not having to, travel anywhere. You're not having to pay a pet sitter for, your own animals or whatever, what have you. We keep the registration fees low. We intentionally keep them low. Right now they're at $150, which is enough to make people feel invested so that they show up. And we want them to, make sure that they arrive because they want to get their money's worth out of the experience. But it's not so high that it's going to be a barrier to someone who might not have the financial resources to attend otherwise, right? And so it is very affordable in terms of, because we're also offering CE. So it is usually about 8 hours of CE. And for a registration fee of $150, that's like really good. So we've also intentionally kept class sizes small because we've heard again and again how important the mentorship and the supervision is. And so we want people to feel like they have that one-on-one connection with their trainer and that they're really getting the opportunity to ask questions and just have that focused learning time together. And so we intentionally keep those class sizes small. And here we go. We work with our local organizations because this is your training. It's not ours. We want to highlight you as the knowledge experts, and we encourage you to source the trainers and the other support teams, or your vet techs and whoever else is going to be in the room or supporting the clinic, we encourage you to source all of those people right from your own community. You know, who do you work with already? Who do you go to for surgery right now? Find those people, build your network, and we are uplifting you as the knowledge experts, right? Because you guys are the local knowledge experts, and we want to make sure everyone recognizes you as such, right? And so you are now going to become the local leaders in high quality, high volume spay neuter training. Congratulations. And then, like I said, we are keeping this open to any licensed veterinarian. We're not gatekeeping. We think there is a value for any veterinarian to come on in and learn these techniques and apply them how they will. And I can speak to that more later. And then this model is also very adaptable. We want this to fit with whatever community and whatever way works for them. And I'm always very excited to see what that flexibility, what that end result, I guess, looks like. I think of myself as like an improv. I feel like I'm in improv class because someone will come to me and they'll say, well, I might want to do this, but I'm thinking it might look a little more like this instead. And I'll say, okay, yes, and what can I do to help? And so I want people to be successful. I want you to take ownership of it and feel like you are empowered to do all the things. And USA is here to support you along the way. And so I see my role really as like a cheerleader and support team. But that's the model. That's it. There you go. And I will say that we did not get here entirely on our own. And so I do want to give a huge shout out to Vermont and VT Can because they did this first. They held a training, and just like this, it was local. It focused on training vets right there in Vermont. Like no frills, no fuss. They just got it done. And we went, oh my gosh, that is great. And we talked to them about it and how they did it. And then with their blessing, we have taken it and we've now run with it because we are trying to create a template or resources that anyone can use to create these trainings in their communities. So shout out to VT Can and for them leading the way here. And of course, there are other people who have hosted similar trainings. We are always looking to learn and apply those lessons learned, those tips, those takeaways. All of that is going into everything that we're going to talk about today. And so we are standing on the shoulders of those who have come before for sure. I just want to take a quick moment to point out this photo on this slide. This is our very first wet lab crew. So this is April 2023 in Maine. If you look, the vet who is in like the blue scrub top kneeling on the ground, she has like the scrub cap on. That is Dr. Beth Sperry. She, from day one, we gave her a call and we said, we have this crazy idea. And she said, say less. And, she just immediately hopped on board. And we've been working with her ever since. And now her clinics in Maine have become like my peak of what I love to see. They pretty much just run them. They know exactly what they're doing at this point. They just tell me when they want to do them. I recruit folks and get them there. However, we did not start there. This April 2023 date you see, it was meant to happen in November of 2022. And you know what happened? There weren't enough cats. They were relying on TNR cats, and so cats did not go in traps, and so they didn't have enough cats for surgery. And so they decided to postpone because they didn't feel like the participants were going to get their money's worth. And so they made the decision to postpone, but no one told me. So I had no idea they had posted. Here I was anyway. So all I'm saying is mistakes were made, right? And even here with our April photo, you see 1, 2, 3 participants. I had room for 4. I had room for 4, but I didn't do enough to recruit and build a wait list and a standby list. And I learned a lot along the way. Mistakes were absolutely made. There were things I would have done differently and recommend doing differently now. But the point I want to make is, yes, you might make mistakes. Everything may not go exactly right, but you know what? These folks had a great time. The evaluations from that day, those 3 people who were there, positive, all around 5s across the board. just wonderful feedback, wonderful experience. It was enough to convince Dr. Sperry that she wanted to continue this. We held this training with the Animal Refuge League in Greater Portland. Shout out to them for believing in us and working with us through this like inaugural learning experience. Dr. Beth Sperry has now opened her own clinic, the Maine Animal Health Alliance, and we continue to work with her and her team at that location to offer at least 2 trainings a year. And I just have to give them the hugest of shout outs. So we've learned a lot, but you know what? Mistakes were made. We got through it. We lived through it. And now we use all of those lessons learned to make sure the next wet lab is even better. So don't let the fear of mistakes hold you back. All right. So we started in April 2023 with that first wet lab. How have we been doing since then? Okay. So we have, now I will side note, this is anticipating we have 2 more trainings to go before the end of 2025. We're looking forward to working with 4 Precious Paws in Indiana. We have a wet lab with them scheduled for November 16th. And then we're working with Planned Pethood in Georgia in December. They're going to do a dog wet lab. Woohoo! And so these numbers also assume that those trainings go as planned. So but here are statistics, okay? So we have done 19 of these trainings in all by the end of 2025. We have worked in 7 different states and 11 host locations. Now, that is just like the physical location where trainings have been held, because often these trainings have a lot of different partners and stakeholders and sponsors. And so there's a lot of different players who come together to make them happen. And I started to try and tabulate how many that would be, and I just got very lost and I didn't want to leave anyone out. And so anyway, I decided to go with just the physical location, right? We've worked with 11 different clinics and locations. We've built a list now of 23 trainers. Most of those were folks who had never taught before, had never thought about teaching before. They were just the local high volume spay neuter surgeon. And then they were asked if they would be willing to participate as a trainer. And they went, well, what qualifications do I have? You have experience, and in such a niche field, we do not have a specialty. Like there's no like board certification for high quality, high volume spay neuter. The only real expectation is experience. That is the only real qualifier here. So if you are an experienced surgeon, you are qualified to train if you're willing to impart that wisdom, if you feel comfortable imparting that wisdom. We do have like a curriculum, a rough outline of what we want folks to teach, but if they feel comfortable sharing what they've learned, sharing their techniques, we are glad to have them. And so we have built a list of at least 23 trainers now and growing. And we've had 85 participants, y'all. That's 85 veterinarians who had never touched high quality, high volume spay neuter before or had very limited exposure to it. They have come in and they have learned these techniques. And along the way, we have provided spay neuter services for 668 animals. Boop, boop. And that's mostly cats. And so we've had a lot of folks say they want to do cat wet labs. I want to give a shout out to DeKalb County, Georgia, because they took on our first ever dog focused training in February. And there were a lot of takeaways because cats and dogs are very, I mean, obviously they're different animals, right? But they're really different animals. When you have cats, they're all mostly the same size. It's a lot more straightforward for surgery. With dogs, you're dealing with different breeds and different sizes. And it gets a lot more complicated. And I'm not a vet, but I can tell you that the conversations around what we need to consider for surgery have gotten a lot more complicated when you start talking about dogs. And so there's a real need and desire for dog-focused training out there. I will also say that there's a need for it. So if you're up for the challenge, I think you'll find that there are vets who would love to learn. All right, so why am I talking so much about high quality, high volume spay neuter? What is really the difference? And maybe this is for you, or maybe this is just for you to understand how you can talk about it with your community when you're rallying support for this type of training. And the way I always approach it is that these are safe and efficient surgical techniques. It has nothing to do with speed. Speed is an outcome. It is just over time that becomes something that happens. You just become very efficient with it because what we're doing is we are working smarter, not harder. All of the techniques that are used have been refined by surgeons over time, and they've been passed from mentor to mentee, who have then gone on to refine it, and then they pass it along. And so these techniques have been honed over decades. Just I can't even imagine how many thousands or millions of surgeries at this point. And so it's really all about maximizing efficiency. And I mentioned earlier that in a high volume clinic, it's like a dance, right? And everyone has to know the steps. And that's where the efficiency comes in, is that there's no wasted movement. There is attention is given to every single detail, even so much as like how the vet might place their feet, how high the table needs to be, like how they're holding their wrist, their hand, all of the fine details that I, as a layperson, would never think about. But when you are in this setting, it makes total sense. And so the people who do this truly are specialists. They are experts at what they do, and that this is a very specific skill set, I would say. And it's different than what vets typically learn in vet school. It is a departure from those spay neuter techniques. It doesn't mean that what they have learned is wrong. This is just a different way to go about it, and it is an efficient way to go about it. And because it is so efficient, we're looking at smaller incision sites, which leads to shorter time under anesthesia. And when you're under anesthesia for less time, there are fewer complications and a faster recovery. And so you're looking at just better outcomes for the patient overall. And I will say that patient care and comfort is front and center. The surgeons I have met with through this process have been some of the most caring and compassionate and thoughtful people I have ever met. And I think that they prioritize patient care so much, and they put so much into ensuring that everything runs smoothly. I mean, if you think about it, and you're going to have surgery, right? Do you want an incision site that's like many inches long, or would you prefer to have like that microscopic incision where, they can minimize how invasive it is? And the same is said of our animals. So that's what they're aiming to do, is make it as minimally invasive, minimally disruptive for them as possible. And then when we see that greater efficiency over time, the surgeon will get more and more efficient and proficient at these skills and how they're applied, and their surgery times will naturally decrease, right? And that's an outcome of applying these skills. It takes time to learn. It doesn't happen immediately. I'll say that even with our, 1 day of training, they're having 5 to 6 surgeries, which is great, but it's going to take a lot of repetition to really drive home these techniques, right? But if they put the work in, and you're going to see the results. And whether the results are they have shorter surgery times so they can add more appointments to the calendar, which yay, or maybe it is just a smoother workflow and you're able to add more work-life balance back. And, so your staff is feeling a little less burnt out and there's less compassion fatigue and they have some breathing room, however that efficiency plays out, whatever the effects are, it's all good. It's all a win, right? And so I'm not here to say one is better than the other. I think there are pros all around. Okay, so I know I'm talking a lot about the program about the program itself. I swear we'll get into the details, but before we do, I just want to again let you know that this isn't just me saying that it is a great thing, right? We consistently on our evaluation forms that we ask our participants to turn in consistently across the board when we're asking them, what did you think of the training? How do you feel? Do you feel more confident? Like across the board, we're getting 5s, 5 out of 5. And these are the comments that we're hearing, how useful these skills are and how they can be applied immediately to my work. Amazing and outstanding experience. All the instructors were fantastic. And then we had someone who has done high volume for several years and still learned something new. And very excited for Georgia, which we can do a shout out for Georgia a little later, but because wow. But we hear this from lots of folks. We've gathered a lot of feedback. And they're like the additional comment section is totally optional. So this is what they are opting in to tell us, that they learned a lot. It really helped. The themes I see are a lot of confidence. They liked the one-on-one support. They liked that people took the time and were patient with them. They consistently referenced how valuable the CE was and how immediately it can be applied, right, to improve what they're doing. And so we see positive things. This has got to be my favorite testimonial we've ever received. Someone chose to draw us a picture. And so what you see on the left is my incision before, and it's like this big long line. And then on the right, it's my incision after. Yay! It's just a little itty bitty spot, right? And so one of the few graphic feedbacks we've had, but we love it because that's what it's all about. Great day, and I had a blast. So you have fun learning, you get real practical skills out of it, and you feel supported along the way. Goals, right? All right. So that's about our program and kind of the overall success we've seen with it so far. What I'm going to shift into now is like the how it works part, right? And so I do want to, this link on your screen, this wet lab toolkit, that's wet-lab-toolkit at unitedspayalliance.org. That link is going to take you to a Google Drive folder. I've just found that's the easiest way for me to share information quickly, and it means I can keep it updated consistently as we go. And so I have just, as of like this morning even, was updating our toolkits and information in there. So even if you've checked out some of our information before, please go check out this link. You'll see a brand new toolkit for hosts. I have a checklist for hosts who want to know what that kind of planning timeline looks like and what to expect when. I have a whole set of materials just for trainers. If you have questions about the curriculum or what they're expected to teach or anything there. I also have some videos that some surgeons have given us. I hope to collect more of those technique videos. And we have sample budgets, agendas, forms. Basically, I'm giving you the keys to the kingdom. Like, here's what it is. Here's everything I've learned. Here's all the takeaways. Here's what we recommend, a little bit of the why. So that planning toolkit for hosts is pretty comprehensive, just to warn you. It's like a 22-page document right now. But again, I'm trying to share what we have learned along the way. It includes everything from like a glossary. So I learned when I started doing this that there were a lot of words that I just did not understand, at least in the context of vet training, right? I was totally new to this, never worked in a clinic, maybe dropped cats off or volunteered, bringing food in to people who were doing the actual surgery part. So I am not a surgeon. I am not a vet. I've never been a vet tech. And so all the respect in the world to those folks, but I had a lot to learn. And so in case you feel a little overwhelmed with some of the language, I started with a glossary. So you can look up those words. I have an overview of the role, like the roles, who's involved, like what names, like what USA does and what the hosts do, and then all of the different people who are at play and what they do. Some key considerations. There's also like a sample timeline, key considerations, so things to think about as planning comes together. And then I think there's some FAQs. And so anyway, that's your planning toolkit for hosts. The quick start guide is a great one-pager if you just want to give like the briefest like one-page overview of this program to someone. So anyway, check it out. If there's something missing and you think that it would be helpful for you, as a consumer of this information, if there's a resource that would be helpful, let me know, because I would love to make this as valuable as possible. But that is all there for you. So again, that's unitedspayalliance.org/wet-lab-toolkit. Go there. All right, so the general process, how this works, right? So the divvying of responsibilities. And so USA, United Spay Alliance, as the facilitator, we're going to take on the admin type of role. And that really, when I refer to the admin, it means that we're going to set up the registration page. We're going to help recruit all of the participants. I'm going to communicate with those participants, make sure we're getting all the information we need from them. If someone drops, it's on me to fill that spot and make sure that you're going to have a full class for the day. I'm sending them the pre-work materials, so I'm communicating with them ahead of the training to share all of the relevant information and like please watch these videos beforehand, all of that. I take care of submitting CE applications, whatever those look like, and we also do our own fundraising and grant writing to secure funding for this program, which makes it possible for us to offer reimbursements at the end. And so I will say that at every step of the way, I am working in partnership with whoever the host is. All of this is flexible. So if the trainers want to modify the email that goes to the participants, happy to do that. If you need specific registration questions that appeal to you, or you want to include some sort of form that they have to fill out, if you want them to fill out a volunteer waiver, specific to your group. Great, I'll add that in. And so it's all, again, customizable. Even the agenda we have is a template. We work together to finalize it and make sure that everything kind of meets what you anticipate for the day. And so some folks have adjusted the timing, but for the most part, everyone has left the core agenda and like the what's to be taught and how to do it. Everyone's more or less left that intact. It's usually just the check-in and that sort of thing. So while USA is handling kind of that remote facilitation in the admin stuff, the host is planning the clinic. And so this is where the details of animals and the coordination thereof, how many animals, where are you getting them from, making sure everyone knows about the drop off and pickup, logistics, whatever those are going to look like, getting the team in place for the day. This is, again, where we encourage folks to lean on their local resources. So who are the trainers? Who are the surgeons already operating? Who are the teams already working with them? So we encourage folks to lean on your local community. USA, we have resources to help if needed. We're never going to leave you just out in the cold and turn you away because you can't offer this to us. But again, this is us trying to encourage you and be supportive and wanting you to feel empowered to go build this community and see what happens. But yeah, so the hosts are taking care of the clinic logistics, right? And again, all of this is customizable. All of this is adaptable. If there's a specific situation or circumstance and you're wondering if it can work out, the answer is probably. Let's find a way. Let's put our heads together and figure out what it might look like. All right, so this is a very boiled down look at what a typical clinic day might look like. It's like an 8 to 5 sort of activity. And so most often we see 2 trainers. So that's your teaching veterinarians. And there is again, I can't emphasize this enough. There's flexibility here, but we see 5 to 6 clinic staff, and that could be vet techs or assistants or whatever the name is for the person in the room given the responsibility, whatever that surgery support team looks like, around 5 to 6 or so people. 1 coordinator, and that person needs to be outside of the surgery suite. So that is someone who is taking care of all the details, logistics, making decisions, and running the day that has nothing to do with how surgery goes, right? And so someone who is independent of the surgery process as your coordinator. And then we see volunteers being used as needed. Maybe they can help monitor the beach as patients recover, or if there are other roles they can take over, help sterilize instruments or whatever it might be. I always lean on the trainers in the clinic to help make the decision for what makes sense for them. Some vets have very specific ideas as to who should be in the room and how that flow should work, or some clinics work in a very particular way. And I will never prescribe that to them, right? I am not the vet expert, y'all are. So I lean on others to make that decision and what looks best for themselves. So again, this is just generally what I have seen, but I will always defer to individual hosts to make these decisions for themselves. As far as participants, so far we've had 4 to 6 participants. We did have one wet lab where it was just 1 trainer and 2 participants. And I think it was, it was still very successful, but for the amount of time and resources that go into this sort of planning in the event, minimum is 4 is what we have just found to be most successful. And we like to keep, again, those class sizes pretty small, because we want people to feel like they have that mentorship and support. And so we are intentionally capping classes at like a 1 trainer to 2 participants, or maybe 1 trainer to 3 participants max. And that's right now what we feel comfortable with, and it seems to be getting us pretty good results. How many surgeries are done in a day? We say around 5 to 6 spay surgeries for cats. because there is obviously a difference between if you're doing a cat wet lab, you're going to have some more surgeries than if you're doing a dog wet lab. So for cats, we say 5 to 6 spays, 1 to 2 neuters, and then plan to have a couple cats available for demonstration. And then if we're doing a dog wet lab, then we're talking about 2 to 3 spays on dogs of varying sizes. And so I think that's an important piece to mention is that most people are going to want to learn how to do medium to large dog surgeries and just be mindful that there might be some like dealing, right? Making decisions once you see and understand like where a participant is at in their surgical skill. You're kind of like playing matchmaker, like, okay, this surgeon could probably handle a dog of this size, and you're kind of trying to match them up to be like with a dog that's going to give them a good learning opportunity, but not be necessarily over their head, right? And so there's a little bit of matchmaking that goes on for the dogs, but we recommend 2 to 3 spays. So female dogs of varying sizes. We promise 1 scrotal neuter per participant, and again, planning a couple for demonstration. Some other just general requirements that come up. We say at least 2 surgical tables. That's not counting like your prep tables or just keeping in mind what your prep area and table setup might look like. We've seen where a recommendation of having a second prep table has come in handy. Again, this is totally up to the individual location to decide what works best for them, but just keeping space considerations in mind, especially if you're thinking of a dog wet lab. What does the prep and then the recovery area look like? How is that being managed? Who's managing that? I referenced before the importance of having an experienced team to support the high quality, high volume spay neuter process. Again, thinking of that dance, you want people who know the steps. Your trainers are going to be focused on teaching, and that's where they are going to be giving their full attention is on the participants and teaching and imparting those techniques. So you're going to want a team that can run those animals through. And it's, a surgeon can have the high volume techniques, but if like the animals aren't moving through the surgical process with the same efficiency, it doesn't work, right? So you need all these pieces to come together. So we highly, highly recommend an experienced clinic team. And so whether, again, your vet techs, your assistants, or whatever your support team members are, just pull from those folks. And again, a designated day of coordinator, your point person who's going to be the logistics manager for the day, the point of contact for the day. If there is a question about anything, they are the go-to person for non-surgical related matters. And so your front of house person, as I tend to call them. All right. So what is our timeline when we're talking about this? How long does it take to pull something together? And that's a great question. This is like everything, it can be customized and modified, but I have found that I like to have at least 3 to 4 months lead time. And honestly, the more time we have, the better. If someone would like to get in touch and plan a wet lab or get a wet lab on the calendar for the summer or next fall, like let's do it. Let's talk about it. Let's get it at least on the calendar so we can all start planning. And it just gives us more time to get more of these ducks in a row. So as early as you connect with me, basically we have a conversation. You say, I want to do this. And we go, great. And so then we set the date. And when we set the date, that's what makes it real, right? And so we can move forward with all of our other planning details once we have a date, once we have a location. Ideally, I'd love to have the trainers confirmed because if we end up not having anyone available to teach it, then it's a challenge, right? So having trainers on board, the location and the date are all important. And let's see. And the goals, what I mean by goals is just determining whether we want to do a feline wet lab or a canine wet lab. So who is our target patient for the day? Are we doing cats or dogs? So around 2 to 3 months out, we're going to be working on the CE application. A lot of times those applications, I need like a CV, like the resume of the trainers. And there might be some other just like paperwork type of stuff I need. It's usually nothing too exhaustive, but I just might need some information from the teams. I will need the trainers like bio. We put their bio on the agenda that the participants receive. And so just so they know who they're learning from, right? And so there's some basic just information, event details that need to come together. And then we start recruiting. And now the way recruitment works, we don't have an application, right? Like I said before, we keep this door wide open. However, we do give hosts in whatever that team is that's supporting the clinic, we do give the local group first opportunity to put this out. And so you can share the link to register directly with anyone you definitely want to invite. If there's someone in the community that you just know has to be there or really wants to come, you're going to have, whatever time that you might need to make sure that they get in. And, it's first come, first served, right? And so we don't necessarily have an application, but I'm not going to share it publicly, right? I'm going to give you time to make your direct appeals to folks and ask, who you want to be there to be there. And then once we have started that recruitment, and then I'll start opening it up wider and wider and wider. I always start with our interest list or our wait list of folks who have raised their hand saying, I'd love to know when you're adding new opportunities to your calendar. So I always let them know first, and then I reach out to our Spay VetNet, and then we start putting e-blasts out to our audience, and then we start posting on social, and then we start, posting broader as we need to. And we will even go so far as to do direct outreach to clinics we find in the local area. So we will get as into the weeds for recruitment as we need to. I always like to fill the class and then have a wait list. And I love it when the wait list has at least 3 to 4 names on it. More, the more the merrier, but at least that gives us some room for people to drop and others to come on board. About a month out, let's see, we just kind of continue whatever planning details need together, continue recruitment. If there's CE application still in progress, or check in on how that's doing. Typically, like I think I mentioned before, but we are approved for 8 hours of CE. The host is going to keep planning the clinic. We're probably going to have a little check-in to make sure that all of those details and considerations that are outlined in the toolkit come together. The week of, we're going to have a final check-in. I'm going to make sure that everyone feels comfortable and confident and ready to go. I check in with participants. I check in with the teams. I put all of the final agendas together, the certificates together, any material you might need for the day. I put it all together in a nice, neat little package, and I send it along to the host so that you are fully ready to go. You're going to print out the certificates. You're going to print out the agendas so they have paper copies with them. We have evaluation forms that we ask you to distribute. Yeah, that's I try to package as much as I can to make your life as easy as possible. And then the day of, you're going to host the training, and all of those details you've been planning and logistics are going to come together, and you're going to have just the best day ever. You're going to take pictures, and you're going to text me to let me know that things have gotten off to a good start and that everyone has arrived. And if they have not, you're going to text me and say, so-and-so isn't here, we have a spot available. And then I'm going to start texting the standby list, which is a newer addition to my planning process, where I have learned to put together a list of folks who have raised their hand to say, hey, I can be available at the last minute. I can be available the morning of if you need me to. And so I now have a standby list in addition to the wait list, specifically because people sometimes don't show up, and I really don't want any opportunity to learn to go unused. And so even if it's morning of, let me know. And so anyway, you're checking in with me, you're taking pictures, and you're having fun putting together a terrific session. And then afterward, of course, we have our own follow-ups where the host is going to share the evaluation forms that were completed. I would love to see all of the photos, and you're going to send over an invoice, and USA is going to reimburse you for, the agreed upon expenses. And then we are also, USA is going to follow up with the participants themselves. And so I always send them a follow-up email like the week after their training, sometime, to say, thank you so much for joining us, and here's the information. Here's how you can stay in touch. I try to provide like a contact person for them so that they can stay in communication, whether it's just the email for the trainers or a way for them to, oh, we're having this clinic day and you're invited to come back for a continued mentored, supportive experience, right? We don't want to just throw them into the deep end and expect them to be at the same level as someone with more experience, but we want to foster opportunities to come back and learn and continue feeling supported. And so I do send them that kind of follow-up to help them feel included and part of the community. And then I also schedule emails to go out to them 3, 6, and 12 months after the fact with a survey, trying to gather feedback on how they have used those techniques, if they have used those techniques at all since their training date. So we do our best to collect feedback and follow up from our participants to inform how we shape these trainings moving forward. So anyway, this is a super condensed timeline. There's a lot here that probably hasn't been mentioned, but these are the broad strokes. There's more detail in that toolkit. Okay, so now we're getting into, see, I knew we'd go long. It's already 3 o'clock. But I am appreciative to everyone who's hanging in there with me, and I'm happy to answer your questions. And so I have some FAQs here of things I know I have heard throughout the planning process. And so I'm going to go through these and then we'll open it up, and I would love to answer anything else that I have not addressed. And so I think I addressed this already, but how do we find the trainers and the clinic team? And that part can be really stressful for folks. They feel a lot of pressure, especially if you're in an area where maybe there isn't any high volume resource. There's no local leader. If that's the case, then I mentioned the Spay VetNet earlier as one of our networks that we have developed. I mentioned the 23 trainers that we've already worked with in other states. And we have other partners as well. And so we have a network of people that we can call upon to say, hey, do you know anyone in such and such place that would be willing? And so it's not impossible for us to find trainers. And it's probably, expanding that, if there are team members that need to support the process along the way. So I don't want you to feel like I'm just throwing you out into the middle of the water and saying, swim, when you have no idea what to do. However, I bet there are people in your community who probably have recommendations or know who you could get in touch with. Or, maybe we can put you in touch with some of the other trainers and that they know someone in your community. So anyway, I think there are opportunities. There's always ways for us to look at, different angles to see what we might be missing. We would love for you to find those local folks because, again, we want to encourage this community building. You, as the leaders, you are the grassroots knowledge experts. You are the leaders of high quality, high volume spay neuter, and we are happy to empower you as such. Can anyone be a trainer? If they are an experienced, high quality, high volume spay neuter surgeon, then I say yes. If they're open to the opportunity, we do have information in the trainer toolkit that covers, what they are expected to teach, what we are learning and imparting throughout the day. And if all of that sounds good to them, and if they are trusted. And so this is the other part. As the local leader, we are also leaning on you a bit to know kind of the ins and outs of what might not be as obvious to us. I think we've all been in a situation where someone mentions a vet or a clinic that they have gone to, and you kind of go, oh, I wouldn't use them myself. Or, you kind of advise, for whatever reason, for better or worse, you have a better idea of the local landscape and who to trust and who the local leaders are. And I think that local knowledge and your experience is very valuable. And so I think that can inform this process as well. So yeah, when we marry our resources and your local knowledge, I think we can find an experienced team. Also, all of these pictures that you're going to see on the FAQ slides, these are our group photos from trainings that have happened throughout 2025. The only one missing from this series is California, who you saw earlier in the presentation, I think. No, I think I did add them in here. Anyway, we have our class photos because I thought they were adorable and I wanted to share. And so again, we have Georgia. We kicked off in February with our first ever dog wet lab. And I want to give a shout out to DeKalb County, Georgia. Oh, and I need a quick aside because I heard from Peggy, who was key in helping coordinate the wet labs through DeKalb and just the ripple effect we have seen through Georgia. So Peggy just, with Lisa and with Commissioner Spears, gave a presentation about how the DeKalb County spay neuter trainings and the initiative to do these spayathons, how everything came together. Basically, they've built this super collaborative model in DeKalb County where it is not just the shelter, it is not just a single clinic, but it is multiple clinics and the shelter and other local stakeholders and rescues all working together, plus the support of the county commission. And they just have this really cool collaborative model. Well, I think it's one of the participants in this photo, actually. One of the participants here has gone on and is now spreading the high quality, high volume spay neuter message over social media, doing this work in the next county or in a different county within Georgia. And then we had someone attend and observe the training in DeKalb, and now they're taking it back. And I had a conversation with them. We're looking at trainings in Kentucky and North Carolina. And you never know what people are going to take away from this and the ripple effect that there's going to be. The dog wet lab we're doing in December that I mentioned at the start of our presentation that we're going to do with planned pethood. I mean, that is a direct result to the success that we've seen with DeKalb County. And so now we're seeing more people wanting to get on board. We have another clinic in Georgia that we're going to work with in the beginning of 2026. And so, like, it's just, you never know what the impact is going to be. And I just have to give a shout out to Peggy for making that connection with Commissioner Spears for bringing DeKalb County government in to get publicly funded training on the books, and they're going to host more trainings in 2026. We're looking forward to working with them and making it happen. But I will cheer them and the work that they're doing from the rooftops because I just think it's so outstanding. So to our whole Georgia DeKalb County team, to Lifeline, to our vets and trainers, to Dr. Eller, Dr. Koyman, anyone, I will cheer the news. You guys are incredible. All of our teams are incredible, but just Georgia has like seen a lot of momentum and it's really exciting. So anyway, I digress. How much does this cost? I mentioned reimbursement. I mentioned budgets. We typically, when I write grants, we estimate about $5,000 for a cat wet lab and then a dog wet lab because dogs are bigger and require more supplies. We up that to about $6,000. And so we reimburse up to $4,600. And I think it's $5,600 for dogs. And so it is like a set amount within the budget. There is a stipend for trainers. I have like a bucket of money for trainers. I have another bucket for your support staff that you are welcome to divvy as you like. When I first started, I tried to like prescribe like, oh, vet techs should get this much and the other people should get this much. But I realized I knew nothing and it works better if you guys just decide what everyone should be paid because then you all can make that decision for yourselves. So I just have this pool of funds and here you go. And so you're going to send me an invoice after the fact and with receipts where possible. And then I'm going to reimburse you for those expenses. And I will say though, with this, we will reimburse up to $4,600, though we have with cats. But we have seen costs come in under this. So you don't have to go up to $4,600. And then it might be that someone else is footing the bill, like DeKalb County, the local government is footing the bill. They have money for animal initiatives and they have sponsored the cost of these trainings. The planned pethood training that's coming together, that is thanks to the generous support of a donor who said, I want to help make this possible. And so if there are fundraising opportunities or other avenues for us to, explore to support these, the less that has to come out of our direct budget means the more we have to make other opportunities come together. And so we always encourage if there's any additional fundraising or of a local contact where you're like, actually, there's this foundation. And if you reach out to so-and-so, we think they'll fund this. And so we welcome that sort of collaboration as well. Who attends? Is there an application? Again, I think we covered this, but this is open to any licensed veterinarian. And just to emphasize that, we have had vets who maybe haven't done a spay surgery in like 20 years because they were in private practice doing other things. We have had like a large animal vet who is just on farms all the time and sees a lot of barn cats and decided he wanted to help them too. We've had new grads, of course, and we've had just people who are working maybe in emergency medicine and want to pick up a new skill set that they can apply or maybe help contribute to the community. And so there's lots of different avenues that vets may, take to get to your training. But again, we welcome everyone and these skills can be broadly applied. This question comes up a lot. What are the commitments? We're taking the time to teach these folks, right? We're putting our time and our resources and our money into teaching them spay neuter. Why won't they come spay neuter for us? And I get it. I hear you. I understand that we all just want more surgeons. And our hope is that out of this, we do get that person who gets the spay neuter bug, right? But the thing is, you never know who that person might be. It might be someone like Dr. Gianto that I referenced from Georgia earlier, who didn't even leave us a comment on her evaluation form, by the way. And then now she's off doing high volume surgeries in another county and posting about how great it is on Facebook. And so you never know who that next champion and that next person's going to be or what they're going to do with it later. And so again, there's no firm commitment to anything. We encourage hosts to create a pathway and welcome people back to continue that supportive learning process. But at this point, we don't have like a prescribed, like, well, you spay neuter here and then you have to come back and you have to keep doing spay neuter days for the next 3 months. That's not, this is truly like a one-time commitment. We want them to get a flavor, a little sample, and they're dipping their toe in the water and seeing if it is for them, and then encouraging them to stay involved as, whatever that might look like. Oh, I think I had a duplicate slide. So, but I did have both. That's my California team that I talked about earlier. Now, this is the whole clinic team. Like I said, we have about six participants. Actually, here I have 5 participants. This is where I learned about the standby list because we had someone cancel the morning of, and I didn't have a list of people who were gonna be on call to just show up that morning. And so a whole spot went unused. And so I learned from the California Wet Lab. Shout out to Bay Area Cats. Sorry, I had to learn, but I did learn. So moving forward, I now know to use a standby list. All right, and then our team this is in July. So this is Animal Welfare Society. So this is another location we've recently added to training in Maine. So we have Dr. Sperry up in Augusta with the Maine Animal Health Alliance, and then we just recently worked with Animal Welfare Society in Kennebunk, Maine. So very grateful to our Maine outreach. Do participating vets have to be in state? And the answer to that can vary, right? This comes down to licensing and the requirements of licensing or licensure in that state. And so some states do offer some form of reciprocity where maybe surgeons can come in and operate under the supervision of a surgeon. However, I would say that that is the exception more than the rule. It seems like more often states are very specific. You have to be licensed in that state in order to participate or do surgery of any kind, even if it's for free on shelter animals in a training environment. So it just depends on your state, is what I would say. And so there you go. Can I work with another organization? Absolutely, we encourage it. We love to see co-hosts. We love to see partnerships. We love to see sponsors. We love to see all these stakeholders involved. The more the merrier, as far as we're concerned. If you can't tell, if you haven't picked up on it, we're very big on building networks and bringing people together. And we think idea sharing is like the absolute epitome of how we're going to get this work done, right? None of us is going to do it in our own little silo. It works best when we share ideas and we work together. And so find your people, bring them into the process, see what you can do to support one another to make it happen. And so if you are like our Maine Animal Health Alliance, they're all under one roof. They are a clinic. They do this regularly. They're now on autopilot. They know what they're doing. Great, but it doesn't have to look like that. All right, here we are. Finally reached the end of my presentation. All right, so let me see. Can I ask Kristen, were there any questions that have come up? Can you help me? I see a lot in the boxes and I don't want to miss something.
Yes, absolutely. There's a few that I checked to answer live, but I'm not sure if you can see those. So let's just go through them. Can people share this material and are they welcome to translate it?
Yes, you can absolutely share this material. I would be very open to a translation. Yeah, the only thing that I I would love to see the translation, right? And just if our name is going to be on it, I just want to make sure that the translation makes sense, I guess. But we're happy to share the information as far and wide. Again, this is all about getting more trainings into the communities. And we love it when people take it and run with it and do what they want with it because it doesn't have to have our name on it. But I guess in short, yes, please share the material.
Excellent, excellent. And if you do translate it, it is always helpful for us to have translations. I don't know about United Spay Alliance, but at the podcast, we're always looking for translations of languages that we don't necessarily have access to on the regular. So if you got those things, share them because then we can share them too. It'll be a big virtuous circle.
Absolutely.
Dr. Sneck wanted to know if vets can have access to the spay neuter technique videos in the toolkit. Is that available to them?
Yes. Hi, Dr. Sink, experienced surgeon in the
Sorry.
house. Hello. Yes. Those toolkits and the video should be available in the toolkit. And if they're not, that's a problem, and I need to update a setting somewhere. So let me know. But yeah, they should all be available to the public.
Are those toolkits on the website? I'm sorry if somebody asked if you already went over that, but I'm curious.
Oh, I need to add the actual link to our wet lab page. So I need to update that because this quite literally was finalized in the run up to this webinar. And so I haven't gotten it onto the actual United Spay Alliance website yet, but it will be there.
So those will be coming soon. Excellent. Let's see. Can a high volume vet make a good income at $50 per spay neuter?
I would say absolutely. And I know there is a way to make that work.
Mhm.
Um, I think I think that's like a lot bigger business question that I'm probably not the best person to answer right now, just to be very transparent. But I know that yes, we have done a whole presentation about how high volume, and it also comes down to procedures. And so it might not just be solely spays and neuters. There might be opportunities to include other procedures in there that can help offset some of those costs. But yeah, you can absolutely make a good living doing it.
Excellent. There are models for private practices to do high volume, high quality spay neuter. That might be worth looking into. That may be
That's
completely a subject for another webinar.
Yeah, no, that's a good point though. I mean, you don't have to be a nonprofit doing this work. Um, and yeah, I'm trying to remember. We did a webinar earlier this year about someone who's doing high volume work, and it was pretty much making the point you can make money doing this. And so, but it wasn't recorded for the public, and so I can't share that information. But
Oh
yeah.
no. There are, I do know Stacy's clinic does high volume, high quality spay neuter as a way to subsidize lower costs for spay neuter for her own cats. So if you can do it to the point that, you know, it subsidizes other services, that definitely indicates a potential for profit if the vet wanted to do it. So we're not necessarily asking them for charity to be doing these high quality, high volume spay neuters, which was the point of that question, is if we're, you know, asking them to work for nothing essentially at the $50. Um, let's see, what else do we have in here for questions? If you guys do have any questions, please pop them in that Q&A box, so we can go ahead and get them dealt with right now. Could virtual reality be used for some training?
I know, I like the idea. I haven't explored that myself. I know that they are like our friends in Spain, Mexico are doing a lot of because they host big clinics, right? They have these big training opportunities where they're bringing lots of vets and lots of vet students, everyone in, and there's too many people there, more people than can participate in the actual surgeries. And so I know they like they live stream their surgeries, and they have a different model for how training happens. But I don't think we've explored virtual reality yet. But of course, with virtual reality, no cats or dogs are being actually spayed and neutered. So.
This is very true, and that is the one great thing about this, is you are spaying and neutering a whole bunch of cats while you're also training cats and dogs. I always forget that you guys do dogs too. So
Cats
there are
and
other
dogs.
mammals that exist, as it turns out.
And dogs. We'll have spayed and neutered at least 30 dogs by the end of the year. So they're there.
That's
Yeah.
fantastic. All right, I do think that actually has tied up all of the questions.
Yay.
So we're in
Okay.
pretty good shape. And if people do have questions after this, once they've digested some of the material, where can they find you, Bree?
You can always reach out to me via email, Brianna at unitedspayalliance.org. That's usually the best way to get in touch with me. And then I added, hopefully it works because I added it at like the very last second. There's a QR code on this screen, this slide, and that is where you can just pick a time, and that'll go straight to my calendar, and we'll pick a time to talk. And we can talk all about wet labs if that is what you would like to do. So please do reach out, Brianna at unitedspayalliance.org, or info at, it'll find its way to me, I promise. But yes, and so we are very glad to work with you, talk with you, support you along the way, because we are just here to see more spay neuter happen.
Excellent, excellent. So with that, oh, Are techs able to high volume spay neuter? This is something that Janelle was just asking last minute, and I think it's an important question. So let's get it in.
Yeah, it's a very, very important question. So I don't know whether you mean are vet techs able to attend the training? If that is the question, at this time, our training is only focused on the veterinarian. And we rely on having an experienced vet tech and vet techs and team to support the process. And so I have heard from a lot of people how valuable it would be to have a training around the clinic team roles
Mhm.
in these techniques though. So I hope, envision maybe someday that is the next iteration of our training program is making sure we're including the support team in the process. But for right now, the training is just focused on the veterinarians. But the vet techs are critical. They are key, like VIPs. They make the day happen. They are the ones that are ushering all the animals safely and efficiently from, intake to prep to surgery to recovery and on home again, wherever that might be. And so we are very grateful for all of our experienced technicians and what they provide. They're really the heroes of the day. While the vets are just there learning and cutting, techs are running the day.
Do you mind if I mention Dr. Morrow's clinic?
Oh, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, so Dr. Becky Morrow at Frankie's Friends, which is in Pittsburgh, has also does high quality, high volume spay neuter. And in the interest of getting as many cats spay neutered, cats and dogs spay neutered as possible, it's a great idea if you are a tech who wants to get involved in high quality, high volume spay neuter, to look them up because they do offer training for techs in the clinic environment, not to do the surgery itself, of course, but that hopefully will come at some point in the future. I didn't say that out loud. Please don't at me. But she does have training for vet tech. So if you are a vet tech interested, maybe hop on there. And I'm sure that United Spay Alliance will start having that in the future. But for now, that's a great option. And she's a lot of fun. So you might
Yeah,
just enjoy
for
the
sure.
training itself.
Yeah, we love Dr. Becky. We love Frankie's Friends and their model. That spay neuter training resources on our website. I believe it's under our resources tab if you go to our navigation. Um, they're listed there along with all of the other training resources we have found. So if you know of more training, whether it's for vet techs or vets in person, online, if you know of more resources, let me know because I want to make this as like a go-to spot for anyone who wants to learn things. This model and this template is just one approach, right? And there are other people out there. There are, I just spoke with another vet in California who's ready to like mentor folks on a one-on-one, very hands-on, supportive way to get them onboarded with these techniques. And so there's new opportunities being added all the time. And I think it's important when we recognize the vet techs and their role in this as well. So yeah, just a public plea to help us update our resources by letting me know of cool things that exist.
Excellent, excellent. Well, I do think that is the last question, and we have run over just a bit. So, Bree,
That's
is there
okay.
anything you want to do to close up?
No, I guess I want to thank everyone who is still here. I had debated on making this a 90-minute webinar from the start, and I'm like, no, it'll be fine. And so anyway, here we are, 90 minutes in. I thank
But
you
90
all.
very important minutes.
Right? I hope so. And I hope I didn't I'm very passionate about this program because I have seen it work and I have seen the success and like hearing the stories of vets who have gone off to do unexpectedly amazing things or DeKalb County funding these. They're funding it. Like that's so incredible. What a model to point to. And like
Hmm.
we've seen so many stories. And so anyway, I just want to say that whatever the model is, however it comes together, I know there are challenges. I'm not saying it's going to be super easy for everyone, but I'm saying we want to work with you to make it happen. So thank you for being the ones that are here considering this opportunity. And for anyone watching the recording later, thank you for tuning in and sitting through a 90-minute recording and getting to this point in the presentation. But just thank you all. Thank you for your passion and your commitment. Um, and let me know how we can help.
Excellent. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Bree, I'm going to end the webinar if that's cool with you.
Sounds good to me. Thank you all.